So believe it or not, the number one concern people have when moving to San Diego as far as environmental concerns is not earthquakes, it's actually wildfires.
Fire, 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 fire.
And with good reason. There have been plenty of wildfires in San Diego, Southern California, Northern California, because it is dry and there is not a lot of rain. So today we're going to talk about how to protect your family, how to ensure that you're moving to the right area and minimize your risk when it comes to wildfires. My name is Dan Parker. I'm a real estate agent here in San Diego, and I make videos about living your best life in San Diego. So if that is helpful for you, make sure to like and subscribe this video. And make sure to stay till the end because I'm going to provide some resources so you can do some research on your own. So when you're actually looking for somewhere to live in San Diego, it can be helpful to start out by doing some research on the fire hazard severity. And there is a very helpful tool by the County of San Diego. It is on readysandiego.org, and it is actually a heat map for the highest severity hazard zones when it comes to wildfires. Now, keep in mind, first and foremost, it says right here, it's important to understand that being a hazard zone does not always mean high risk. There might be some mitigation activities that minimize the fire risk for a specific area. And when you look at this map, it looks terrifying.
Fire! 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 There's fire!
So all of the red areas, the pink areas, the yellow areas are the areas that you potentially would want to avoid when it comes to wildfires. And it basically looks like it's everywhere in San Diego. Now I'm going to show you another map in just 1 minute that's, I think, going to be a little bit more helpful when you're starting out this search to figure out where to live and where not to live. If you actually zoom into this map, what you can see is the city of San Diego is going to be a lot less red. You can still see some pockets of red. But most of the red areas are going to be deep into the suburbs and the really rural parts of San Diego. That's where this deep red and this dark red is mostly going to be. Now, instead of starting with that heat map that can be extremely overwhelming, what I recommend is just head over to Google Maps. And what you can see on here very quickly is there are a lot of green areas. And that's going to correlate with a lot of the high fire hazard severity zones. You can see a lot of it is way out to the east. There's more to the north going up towards Temecula. And then there's some pockets in here. So right here, you have right around Rancho Santa Fe. Rancho Santa Fe is the most expensive community in San Diego, where the median price home is like somewhere around $3 million right now.
Wow, that's a lot of money.
And it's going to be more of a estate style home. So it's kind of hidden in between all these trees and shrubs and all those sorts of things. So being in this area, there can be some more fire hazards. Getting up into San Marcos, right up here, Escondido, the east section of Poway, and then these areas surrounding Mission Trails Regional Park here. So you have Santee, you have San Carlos, you have Tierra Santa, Allied Gardens. Those are the areas in the city of San Diego and just the immediate suburbs where my clients tend to find the most issues. Yes, of course, if you come out into Alpine, if you come out into Ramona, you're going to have issues with the fire hazard severity. But most people don't want to live that far away from the city. And just as a side note, if you're planning to purchase a house in one of these high fire hazard areas, make sure to check with your insurance provider before you get through the home buying process. Now, this is going to be a mandatory step in the home buying process. You are going to need to secure homeowners insurance, and it would be nice to know up front if you're going to have challenges getting your home insured. There are certain areas in San Diego, especially when you get into these major high fire hazard zones, where insurance companies are not going to take on that risk. You're going to have fewer and fewer options when it comes to homeowners insurance, which means that price is going to be jacked up.
Too rich for my blood.
You really want to know that ahead of time when you're planning out your home purchase. So another resource you're going to have when you're buying a home in California is you're going to have a natural hazard zone disclosure report. So this is a requirement when you're purchasing a home. The seller of a property is required to purchase this for you unless you negotiate that you're going to purchase it for yourself. But the nice thing about this is it's going to go through and tell you if your home is in a fire hazard zone, if it's in a seismic activity zone for earthquakes, if it's in a flood zone. All these things are going to pop up and a heck of a lot more. But when you look on this report, so first it's going to tell you a little bit about the fire hazard safety information, the different zones that you can be in, but it's actually going to tell you, so this is a very high fire hazard severity zone. Say that 5 times fast. And it's also going to show you on a map of exactly what that looks like. So for this very specific property, I was representing the seller, and you can see the red is the very high fire hazard severity zone. So this is just across the street is not going to be a very high fire hazard zone. So the reality is, as a buyer, should you be extremely concerned with wildfire safety near your home? For this specific property, we weren't, because the reality is it's just on the very edge of the map that is the highest risk.
Live on the edge. Life is an adventure.
Now, ultimately, this is going to go to you as a buyer. Are you concerned about living in this area? And B, how much is it going to cost you to get that insured? That's a question that I would like to know as a buyer. How much is this going to cost me? Is it going to be twice, 3 times, 4 times as much money as if I lived across the street? That's a very important question to ask in the home buying process. Another thing to consider is a newer home, a newer community is going to have a lot higher fire safety protocols in place than older construction. It was really in the early 1980s where in California, the standards hit a peak. There was more of a standard across the board for every single home when it came to fire safety. And now California has some of the most stringent fire safety codes in the entire world. Now let's say you currently own a house and you want to make it a little bit more safe against wildfires. There are some specific retrofits that you can do to increase your safety for you and for your family. And although there are plenty of things that you can do, I'm gonna add some resources for you so you can go into heavy detail, but I'm gonna talk about 3 specific things here today. First thing you can do is have a fire break around your house. Now a fire break just means a specific length of land surrounding the perimeter of your house that is not going to be susceptible to fires. So if you have a lot of dried up shrubs and plants, that's going to be an issue. If you have a bunch of dead leaves from trees, that's going to be an issue. If you have fencing going up directly into your house that extends out 100 yards, that's going to be an issue. So remove as many of those combustible materials as you can, and also make sure that your home is landscaped on a timely basis so that you're not going to have a bunch of overgrowth that could cause some type of issue. The second thing you could do is add a sprinkler system into your house. Now, the newer homes, you are actually going to see this in newer construction homes. There's a really interesting thing about these sprinkler systems. This is a myth that people think of all the time when they think about sprinklers going off in a house or going off in a commercial building, is that every single sprinkler is going to go off if there's a little bit of smoke in the house. And that's not how it works. It's actually going to be separated per room, per section. So if there's a fire in your kitchen, that kitchen sprinkler is going to go off. It's not going to damage everything else in your home. So of course you can retrofit your house with some sprinklers. The cost is not going to be cheap, but you can make sure that your home is going to be protected against fires from the inside or from the outside. And if you are in an extremely rural area in San Diego, there's actually a fund that you can tap into. There's $24 million in this fund to help retrofit homes in rural areas. So I'm going to leave the link in the description down below so that if you are in a rural area and you do want to retrofit, you can actually tap into these funds to allow you to be a little bit more safe. So what do you think? Would you consider living in a high fire hazard zone? Let us know in the description down below if you do or if you don't, if you think it's a terrible idea.
You'd have to be insane.
And like I said, I'm going to include every single resource I've talked about in this video in the description below so you can do a lot more research on your own. Don't leave it all up to me. I'm telling you, you can go into way more detail on all these topics, so I'm going to leave that for you to dive into. And to balance out all the negatives of fire hazard safety here in San Diego, check out this video on all the reasons why I love living in San Diego. And if you are considering a move here in San Diego, my team and I would love to help. Feel free to reach out. My contact info is down below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.